to another Cloudburst, and I'm here with my dad, David McNeil. We wanted to talk about, my name is Judah, and we wanted to talk about, we talked last time about heroes, and wanted to conversely talk this time about villains. Now, one thing I did, we were remiss in not, we didn't say anything about
the etymology of heroes, which is basically from Latin through French through Old English, heroes. From Latin.
No, I was going to say we didn't talk about
what?
We didn't talk about military heroes.
Military heroes.
You know, it's interesting that didn't come up for us as we were thinking about heroes and talking about heroes.
Well, we talked about David, who was a military hero.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about any American military
We talked
heroes.
about modern day heroes. We probably should have brought up people that put their life on the line for our freedom.
Who comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I go to church with a few guys that are in either Marines and we have a lot of Marines. We live in sort of a Marine saturated area here.
You consider them heroes, or were they medaled, or just because they're likely to go to war for
us?
Well,
I guess that's a good question. But there's often talk of heroes being police, military.
Yeah, I don't like to throw around the words heroes so much because everybody does their job.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm glad I'm a big supporter of the auxiliary, the first responders, the police, the emergency guys, the firemen, and so on, the military. I'm a big supporter, but they do their job. It's someone that puts their life on the line and actually ends up going far beyond what you would expect of someone. Right.
Well, and it does go back to what we talked about, that Christ is really the only hero that no man or woman saves us. It is only Christ that can save us, Jesus that can save us. So, but talking about villains today, I thought the etymology of the word...
To make an abrupt change in the subject here.
Well, kind of, but I mean, a natural change. When talking about heroes, you want to... You know, both of them are designations. They are labels, really. They're not really something that have eternal
that's essential
presence
in someone.
Right.
That it's a name that you apply to somebody.
Right.
And it's true. A hero is much like that someone's a hero because people consider them a hero, right? It's they don't you don't certify yourself. You don't go to school and get a paper that says you are an official hero.
Right. Yeah.
But we consider people with certain medals, for example, Medal of Honor, Congressional Medal of Honor. Those people are kind of like certified heroes. Yeah. But a hero really is people that are looked up. So it's famous. So what is that pop song? You have always been my hero. You know, you're a hero. Right. A hero is someone that you look up to, even though maybe they never had a medal or whatever.
Well, and there are no medals for villains. We're talking about villains.
We're villains now.
But there is something about it being a narrative construct, right? Like in both are designations, labels.
Yeah,
if we have to agree on. People have to sort of agree.
In stories, there's a hero, and in some stories, especially if they're brief stories, and meant for children or popular consumption. There's going to be a hero and there's going to be a villain, the good guy and the bad guy.
Yeah.
The good guy who leads the good side and the bad guy who leads the bad side. And therefore, when you look up villain, I noticed I was just looking up villain online, YouTube. Oh, well, guess what shows up? Cartoon characters.
Yeah.
Why? Because villain is, you don't want to really think of something as someone is essential villain, and so in a cartoon, he can be an essential villain because if he dies or if we condemn him, he's not really any real person.
Well,
I don't mind there being a hero. Heroes, you can have lots of heroes.
Well,
but you want to be careful about having a villain.
Yeah, but
unless Okay, go ahead.
Well, it is a step above sort of just a narrative construct. There is an archetype, right? There is an archetype, something that everybody sort of knows, but can't really, might not want to ever be that thing.
Well, okay, it's the bad guy in the story, or the bad lady, for example, the
Cruella
wicked godmother, whoever is the wicked witch, who wanted, who gave the potion. Somebody in the
Snow White.
Yeah. Wicked. She wanted the throne. She wanted the lady dead, whatever. But let's go look at the Bible. You have villains in the Bible, several important villains. Of course, the very first villain was someone who's bad, and everybody knows they're bad. But we'll talk about one other important thing is, of course, the first villain is the serpent in the Garden of Eden. The serpent. Now we know later that the serpent is either a manifestation of Satan or a metaphor for Satan, but I think a manifestation was Satan in bodily form. The serpent, and he was not only bad. Why was he bad? Because he was contradicting the good, that is God, who was the author of good. He contradicted. But the other thing was that he was enticing someone to be bad. He was encouraging bad. And that's something that comes up in villains also. Villains either want to do one of two things. They want to kill, or they want to make someone worthy of death, to entice to evil, to encourage to evil. So there's the devil, or the serpent was the first villain. You see him in the story, It's obvious.
Yeah, well, what's interesting though about that story, he wasn't designated as a villain. Well, I mean, he wasn't thought of as a villain in the sense that we would think of a story unfolding and as opposing forces, like he was an evil force, but he wasn't the villain of that story. I guess you know what I mean.
Well, as we look back on it, he was.
As we look back on it,
he was cursed, and then of course we think of it of him as Satan. Satan is the quintessential villain, as Jesus is the quintessential hero. Satan is. Notice that a villain, to me, a villain, and that's why I go back to the cartoon. Why do they have cartoon characters? Because you can have someone a villain in a story, and they can always be a villain. They don't have to be redeemed.
That's why I brought.
They don't have to be redeemed if they're cartoon characters. See, if they're real, you kind of want them to have the possibility of redemption. But in a cartoon, they can be. They're headed for hell. They're headed for death, and that's okay. They're cartoon characters. But if they're real, it's hard to portray anyone as a real a person or someone who's the villain. So you see in the Old Testament, there's the Pharaoh. Pharaoh is a villain, and he is, in the end, we don't see what happens to him, but he's likely to have, it looks like he died in the, when the Red Sea came in on the army. It doesn't say, but he doesn't look like he didn't. He repented. He let him go, but then he came back. He didn't look redeemed in the end. There was no redemption of the Pharaoh. He was the bad guy, and he stayed the bad guy. And he was, so there's a real villain, the Pharaoh, and he's spoken of throughout the Old Testament as the captor of the Israelites, and that God said, I redeemed you from him. I saved you from him. And of course, there's one. You might have a comment on that, but I have one.
No, one other.
Well, the best example of a villain in the Old Testament is Haman in the book of Esther, who is thoroughly evil and dies, destined to die, and he dies. He's hoisted his own, as they say, as Shakespeare said, he was hoisted on his own petard. He he hated Mordecai, who was an image of Jesus, and he wanted to get Mordecai and all his people slain. And he himself was, he built a big gallows to hang Mordecai on, and in the end, he himself was hanged on those gallows. And when the king found out what an evil person he was a true villain from the get-go. Villains are out for themselves. They're out to you can see they're bad from the start, and the best villains are irredeemable. They're just headed for hell, and there's no redemption.
Depends on what you mean by best, but
well, I mean the most essential.
Yes,
there's an essential villain. Haman,
the pure villain.
He didn't look like he was not redeemable. He was cursed, like Satan in the end is cursed. He's not redeemable. Now, some people have off the wall theologies that in the end, even Satan is going to be saved. And I can see him walking up the aisle like I did when I was 12 years old or whatever in the Baptist church, say, I give my life to Jesus. I don't see that happening. In the Bible, Satan and his angels are condemned to eternal damnation and hell. And so he's a quintessential villain.
Well, yeah. But what about humans? And I think this is one thing I wanted to get into. So the original, there's Satan, the quintessential archetypal villain, and Jesus, the archetypal quintessential hero. But when it comes to humans and how we deal in the Christian life, I was looking at the definition or the etymology of the word villain, and it comes from
villain.
But do you know what that was?
Well, I'll tell you. I thought it over because it's kind of murky as you look back at etymology. It means it's a kind of a serf.
Yeah.
What do we call it? A
working
feudal
class.
Yeah, has a feudal fiefdom.
Yes.
But he's a lower level under a lord. But it looks like what they're saying is he only had subservience to the Lord. So in some sense, he was not subservient to the sheriff or to local law authority. So I think I give you an example. He's like the bad guys, in the Old West. The good guy would go to the bar, and he'd be hanging out. And they say, you got to watch out for those guys over there. They work for old guy, old man Hawley. He owns all the ranches around here. And it ends up getting in a fight with the bad guys, and they come back and they have a fight again. And these guys always show up, and you hate them because when they show up, they're not as smart as the boss, and they work for the boss. They work for the boss. They're the bad guys, but you don't mind when they get picked off. Neither does the boss. They can't. They're the bad guys, but they're not subject to the sheriff.
Okay.
It's that
there might be some retrospective.
It's the movie bad guys, the villain, because they are subject to the boss, but they're not subject to the local law.
Yeah. You're talking about sort of like the expendable ranch hand.
Yeah, the henchman. The henchman. Yeah.
Well, but it does serve to show, to me at least, that it's people we don't like. It's basically a villain is somebody we don't like.
Yes, and who's doing things
on we.
Yes, and doing things we don't like. I mean that it's not just that we don't like. I mean, if he's lying in bed of a mortal disease, a fatal disease, there's less concern about him, But when he's active, as for example, the president is. They are people that don't like him and they don't like what he's doing.
Yeah.
So you begin to say, I don't like him. I don't like what he's doing.
Yeah.
So that's the way we feel about the devil too. It's a villainous villain. It's villainous, so. But
the difficulty is, I think what is problematic in the same way that idolatry is a problem with heroism. I feel like scapegoating is a problem with designating a villain. We basically outsource complicated relational things onto a figurehead and point to them as the problem.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
it oversimplifies what is.
It's them. If they could get rid of them,
if
we'd
we
all
just get rid of him.
Yeah,
And usually it's somebody we can't get rid of, right?
yeah.
It's typically the purest, as you were saying, the purest villain is somebody who is, Ford and I talked about this once in a podcast. The best villains in movies are the ones that are equal to the hero.
Oh yeah, the stronger they are, the worse they
Yeah.
are as villains. You know? I left out, of course, one of the archetypal villains, Snidely Whiplash. You know, yeah, but he's villain because he does dastardly things to young ladies. I mean, you know, that's ties them on the railroad tracks and things like that.
Yes, preying on innocence is a typical.
Oh, yeah. Preying on innocence, villains. I was going to go back. So we got an idea what a villain is. But you saying this person's a villain, then saying, okay, if they were out of the way, everything would be all right. There is an interesting story is, of course, the relationship that King David had with King Saul.
Yeah.
And not only with King Saul, with his son, Ishbosheth. But Saul, he had Saul was after David. I mean, he had cursed his son because he was helping David. He had a whole town of priests killed because he had helped David on his way. He was after. If there's ever been a villain, someone looked like a villain, he was. But when David had an opportunity to kill him in the cave, he was at a very vulnerable situation. Here's Saul was in a cave going to the bathroom, and David was right there in the dark. He didn't know it. He could have just killed him. Right. That would have been the end of it, and he would have been king, and that would have been it. He says, I'm not going to touch this man because he has been anointed by God. He has the anointment to be king. Yeah. And so he did that a couple times. And when someone did kill King Saul and brought his bracelet, and I think his crown, but at least his bracelet, I remember, and it said that
bragged about killing
him. And he said because Saul, he was a young man that was in the battle, and Saul had asked him to kill him because he was wounded and he was afraid he was going to get abused by the Philistine. Yeah. So the man killed him, and he brought his bracelet and showed David. David said, "You had the gall to kill the anointed of God." This was the enemy of David. Yeah. And he had the man killed, executed because he did. Same thing. Saul's son inherited the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom. What ended up being Israel, everything but Judah. He became the king. Instead of Saul, people made him King Ishbosheth. And two of his servants said, "Man, this guy, he's destined to be ruined. So we'll kill him, and we'll tell David we do all right." And they killed Ishbosheth and told David that they had taken care of his enemy. And David said, "You had the gall to kill the anointed of God and had them executed." So a rival, an evil rival, as which David had, is not the same thing as a villain. Right. A villain is someone who deserves death. And though I said before God, perhaps Saul deserved death, but even David said, it's not going to solve the whole problem by me killing him. Like you said, we don't want to look at all the evil is in this person or this thing. You know, there's things that need to be addressed in ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and I guess at the danger of being relativistic, I don't want to be just sort of say it's all relativistic. Nobody is. There is a sense in which nobody is the phrase, the term. People, you hear this often. Nobody is the villain in their own story, and also history is written by the victors. And so like this idea that who is shaping if it is a narrative, and it's not just a narrative construct or a social construct, but in a lot of ways, in many occasions it is.
And as we go along, we're writing a story about things. I'll give an example. I think everybody kind of see the problem. We all kind of have an idea of what's going on between Russia and Ukraine, and in this matter, Putin, or Putin, however you want to say it, the Russian leader has become a villain. Certainly in my story of it, and sometimes when I talk about it with you and others, you say, well, maybe it's not that cut and dried. Other people say, well, Ukraine has had a lot of corruption and they've done bad. And so, there you've raised the issue of whether or not when we write a story, we write it with villains and heroes, and after a while, it's self-fulfilling. Whatever Putin does is bad. They see labeling. So we've already got it all clear in our mind, and I think we have a habit of doing that in the news. We say, well, this is a bad guy. This is a good guy. Whatever they do, this guy can't be good, and this gal can't be good. And so on. Instead of keeping our options open, right?
Well, not just our options, but their options. Thinking about since we want all to come to Christ, and since we can't save them, we aren't the heroes, and they aren't the villain. Satan is the villain.
Okay.
And we want to believe that Christ can redeem them, like you're talking about. We want to believe. That's why cartoons are easy to villainize.
Have you seen The Other Side lately?
Well, no.
No, I understand. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah,
and that's the thing is about having villains. Once you look at the other side
as a villain,
I mean, we could talk about people that in politics who are my villains and who are some of your villains out there. And you get so entrenched in seeing people. It's like that. You don't see the redemptive side. You don't see the possibility. One, that they might see it from a different view. And if you saw it from their viewpoint, you might understand better what they're doing. And two, even if they're doing wrong, there's the possibility of redemption. You try to keep that open, right? Is that what you say? Okay.
Yeah. And Scott Adams also, he talks about same movie, two screens of the same movie. We're watching two versions of the same movie. And not just because of our internal dialogue and storytelling, but also because it's being shaped. We've never been so inundated with information on a daily basis and have such a close touch with what's going on. Maybe, but it's also, the algorithm will feed you what you've already been watching. So we get in these bubbles, of information whereas it used to be a physical newspaper that everybody saw the same thing.
Yeah.
We're getting fed, have you seen those things where there's like even different titles for the same article?
Oh yeah. Sometimes, I've got, it's interesting now, I can actually look at headlines very briefly on TV. I don't watch the news on TV until now. I realize I can go boop, boop, boop and hit, Fox, Sky News, NBC, ABC, just get the whatever they're having as the headlines.
Yeah.
And man, how it changes from when they're talking about the same issue. I go, is this the same issue that they were talking about?
Yeah.
I go, woo.
Yeah.
Oh man. And so
it's scary.
If you stay within if you look within you're just getting a
tunnel vision.
A tunnel vision. And the fact of the matter is, it's comfortable.
Yeah.
It's very comfortable. And especially when you get ticked off listening to the other side.
Right.
I go, come on. And I don't want to hear you guys anymore. But you have to say, suspend judgment. Suspending judgment is one of the hardest things you can ever do.
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna make my mind up about that.
Yeah, that's hard.
I don't have to until election day. That's the only time we have to make, as far as politics goes, right?
Yeah, because that's the only action we really can take.
That's right.
But to wrap things up, I do want to bring it back to, and we'll get to people. Thank you, everybody who's watching and interacting.
Was that my villain? This
no, it's not. But the verse that really, I was looking through verses that apply, and James 4:12 reminds us that it says there's only one lawgiver and judge. Right. And to me, that's what it comes down to, because if when it comes down to labels, what a label is, a judgment, and there really is only, and when it is a corporate label, it's a corporate judgment, that's even more dangerous, and buying into that sort of thing, just pointing at the scapegoat and saying this is the problem, it is antithetical to the gospel, in which Jesus says, that was said to you, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, but I say to you, love those who do wrong against you.
Pray for them.
Pray for them.
That's right. No, you don't have to necessarily say they're good. You just have to love them, pray for them.
Right.
And we don't
villainizing is not loving and praying for them.
Yes. And condemning people, or calling them jerks and whatever, which I'm sorry, been known to do. Not anybody that you would know, but but we'll get away from that.
Yeah.
Because there's only one judge.
Yeah.
And it's not us.
Right.
So we want to be careful to suspend judgment as much as possible, to pray for our enemies and pray for those, love our enemies, and to do good to those that despitefully use us, and pray for those who persecute us. Right.
Yeah.
And let's hope we can learn to do that, and put the villains in there and say, even that guy.
Yeah.
Our God.
Amen. Amen. Well, we run out of time. I guess there's much more we could say about this. But we have a bunch of comments we got to get to. So thank you everybody for tuning in. We had Diane Camillo gave us a heart. Thank you so much. And Christian McNeil is tuning in. Jamie Von Stein.
Wow.
So and we got a lot of love coming our way today. Jamie says, "Hi guys, love you both." Thank you. We love you too, Jamie. And cousin Christian as well. He says, "I love you both too!" Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. And then my niece, Abigail. Good morning. She also has been on this very show.
That's right.
And Paul's tuning in. Paulo. Great conversation. Paulo McNeil, my brother, your son, and we just love you guys all. And thank you for tuning in. Hope you got something out of that.
Here's two of your favorite heroes signing off.
No heroes.
No heroes, no villains.
Except for Jesus.
Jesus.
As a hero. And Satan as the villain.
Watch out for the adversary. That's right.
Amen. And we encourage you not to raise up idols and to not scapegoat. Instead, love your enemies. And the other verse that came up too is, of course, Micah 6:8. Love mercy, do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God.
Amen.